Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Friends with Fertility. Today we have Laura and Morgan. Welcome.
Thanks
you
for having us.
I'm going to read their bio so you guys can get some information on them. Laura is a psychotherapist and an AASECT-certified sex and relationship therapist and in private practice. Morgan is a certified professional midwife, lactation consultant, activist, and founder of a birth center, also in private practice. Together, they've co-authored the Cycle book from Penguin, a first-of-its-kind interactive guide that helps people truly understand their hormone cycles through real tracking, emotional insight, and radical body literacy. The book was inspired by Laura's own fertility journey after years of being dismissed and misdiagnosed, and by Morgan's experience working with hundreds of birthing people who were facing the same disconnect between what they were told and what they felt. With the Cycle book, Laura and Morgan offer practical, compassionate tools for tracking everything from ovulation and PMS to rage, pain, libido, PMDD, so people can begin identifying patterns before they turn to crises. So that is a lot, but all super good information. And I feel like we can go so many directions in this. So first of all, how did you guys get together?
Morgan and I have been friends since our early 20s. We were living in Brooklyn together. We did not know one another when we both moved at around the same time. And I was living in a questionable warehouse, and there was a shared bathroom situation, and there were these girls that were like extremely cool, and I really wanted to make friends with them. And so I approached them at the shared sink where we were all brushing our teeth, and Morgan was part of their crew, and I kind of forced my way in. And honestly, I'm super lucky. We've been fast friends ever since. So we've kind of been through it all together: the tumultuous 20s, the relationships, the matching tattoos, the job stuff, all of it. So it's been a
awesome.
while.
I'm glad I asked. That's a cute story. So how did you both come to this, though? I mean, that's a long way from the shared bathroom in the shady warehouse area to where you guys are now and writing a Penguin book. So how did you get from A to Z and all the things in between? And then we'll dive into what the book really is diving into.
Yeah, I think it was such a beautiful evolution, just like Laura was saying. I mean, we grew up through our 20s together and are experiencing all the things that one does in their 20s, including understanding your body and how to be in the world and all of the things with relationships. And through that, we were also independently entering into our professional fields, Laura as a therapist and myself as a midwife. So we were able to really expand on what our own care that we were offering our clients looked like, because we had this amazing consultation that we were able to have continuously with shared clients and shared perspectives to really expand the type of care that we were offering people. And it was so much deeper than simply a professional networking, because we had that friendship beforehand. And I think that's really what evolved through our own personal life experiences, but also our professional careers, and realizing we can be taking care of people a little bit differently than we were told originally.
Yeah, that overlap, that physical, mental health overlap. We just kept coming into that over and over and over again.
Which is amazing, because not enough people have the ability to have someone who's so close to understand and intertwine those things back and forth from both modalities, really, to say this puzzle piece fits in here just exactly the right time that it does in the other area too. And I feel like, honestly, that's the missing piece in so many areas, right? People are going one direction without the other, or vice versa. And there's such a gap there. So it sounds like the perfect marriage of what's needed to support women going through life, really. So an interactive guide, what does that mean? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I came to cycle tracking because of my own difficulty conceiving my second child. And I was given a diagnosis of unexplained infertility, like so many people are. And I struggled through the recommended treatments. I have PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which means that there's a hormonal sensitivity for me that maybe somebody without PMDD wouldn't have. And so the treatments were really, really hard for me. And I felt super lost. And people kind of referenced cycle tracking, but I didn't really know what that meant. And it wasn't until I came to Morgan and was like, please help me, and she was like, you should have come to me earlier. But I was so full of shame that I couldn't even approach one of my very best friends with what I was going through. And she taught me how to cycle track. And I realized that there was so much basic information that I didn't have about my body that I wasn't receiving until this moment of crisis in my mid 30s, and I needed the step by step format. I needed Morgan to teach me. There was so much misinformation when I was Googling it. Sometimes when I was finding a really good resource, it was so dense that I felt overwhelmed by it. So, this step by step guide is exactly what it sounds like. If you've never been given this information, which so many of us have not, quite literally, what do you do with it in a step by step format? How do you track? How do you observe your body? And how do you interpret that data to help yourself?
That's awesome. I remember so desperately, like, just somebody tell me what to do. Like, I think I'm doing it right. I don't know. Is this what that means? I don't know. And yeah, it's very confusing when you're literally trying to Google it and figure it out as you're going through it at the same time, because I do feel, because emotionally you're in the way, your own way as well, right? Because you have so much at stake as also, right? So you're overly paranoid that you're messing something up, or you didn't take your temperature at the right time, or whatever it is. There's a lot of, for myself, I'll speak for myself, there was a lot of shame isn't the right word, but just self disappointment in, like, oh, I must have done something wrong this month, or I must have missed some identifying cervical mucus that I didn't know that I needed, or whatever. It was just ridiculous when I think back on it now. But at the time, it's a lot, because you want to be checking off all the boxes and making sure that you're doing all the things. So I love that it's step by step, because I, for one, love a step by step, because that helps me also to be accountable and to understand it all. And I think that that's what we're missing with younger women, right? I started that in my 40s, you in your 30s. I want people to know this when they're, in their teens, of, okay, this is what I need to look out for. This is what it means and whatnot. And also getting to know their body at that age, right? I think really helps the trajectory of not only pregnancy, but post and all the things that go along with it.
Oh
So
my God. I love that you said that it feels so high stakes because it's so accurate. That resonates with me so much. I know Morgan sees that coming through her door all the time. And it would just be such a dream if we could learn about this when it wasn't so high stakes and it was just general body information that we were all given. It is so overwhelming when you are in a state where every single cycle feels like do or die, you know?
for sure. And the amount of people that I get coming to me of, like, wanting to do it naturally because they know my story, I understand not everybody is going to be able to have 3 children over 40, but these are the reasons and things that I think can help you move that in that direction. But I get calls weekly, daily almost, of, like, I have a friend who's, 45, and she's in this week with Morocco, and she's wondering what she can do to figure out her cycle because she wants to still try naturally. And at some point, obviously, things shift, and we know that. But cycle tracking can help you know that, right? And give you really clear answers of, okay, maybe you got to go another route at this point, right? Um, so, what have you found, Morgan, in your practice with? Let's talk about age and just that alone, really, of, like, knowing, okay, I need to tap out here and I need to seek, an RE or somebody else
I
to
think you're
play.
so on it and how powerful cycle tracking and that awareness can be in helping decision making when you have these multiple avenues of resources around you for pregnancy at older ages. Um, I think one of the pieces that we're so excited about is, of course, what we were saying, getting this information into people's hands early, like before it's feeling like a crisis, before it's that stressful moment, before that kind of, tension you were alluding to in the fertility journey, where it feels like I have to check every single box. If I'm not tracking every element of my body and using every pee stick and every thing, then I've surely messed up and lost this precious time. There's a way to be gathering this information that doesn't promote that tension and doesn't add to that stress and make you feel like it's do or die or failures around the corner if you don't log this information in the perfect way. But there are these really simple body connection biomarker things that you can be tracking to get benefits today and like how you walk around and live the world. And then also, when you are entering into the fertility journey, when that feels like the right time for you, you can use that information to decide which path you want to go on and feel really well resourced for it. Whether it's, I really do think that while I want to stay less intervention with the medical field, recognizing what I'm seeing with my cycle tracking, I could see how maybe this smaller early intervention will better support my pregnancy in the time frame I'm looking for. And people get to really weigh those options in an informed way that, in the end optimizes like getting pregnant and doing the thing they want to do.
Right. And I think it's always helpful when you do go into whichever practitioner you're going to say, here's my info. This is what I can share with you, because that tells so much about your body. And it's literally telling the story to the practitioner of how they can help you. And a lot of people just come empty handed, really, and say, well, I don't really know my cycles. They're every 25 days or every 31 days, and that's normal. But really, was nothing normal about their cycle. It was normal for them, but it certainly wasn't normal. So what do you see often, both of you, where is like the biggest, most common situation with people being surprised once they start cycling?
I definitely have a common story that I see that is pretty gutting for me as a provider to see repetitively. But it has to do with people coming in the door because they've been trying to conceive and intentionally and using information that felt readily available to them. And they've been doing what they think is called cycle tracking by logging information into, maybe a menstrual app that you're familiar with. Um, and they'll come in and they'll show me, just like you're saying, in a really proud way, look at all this data that I have. I'm walking in the door equipped and trying to figure out, why haven't I gotten pregnant in a year? I followed the rules, I used the app, I tried to conceive with timed intercourse in the time frame that my app told me to. It told me that things were regular and predictive, and I'm still not pregnant. And it's usually with a fairly short assessment. It only takes a couple minutes to look at some of that data for people and realize that some of those apps, the majority of them, use an algorithm that is generalized and predictive and not individualized to a person, where it ultimately is giving them incorrect ovulation timing information. So people will look back at that last year. We can look at it side by side and go over and say, even though we were doing all the things they told you to, unfortunately, you effectively have not been doing timed intercourse in an ovulation window, and we've lost a year of our effort towards getting pregnant. And that is crushing and devastating. I think, the research is showing that most of these apps have an accuracy, efficacy for ovulation prediction around 20%. And people don't know that. 20% is not good enough when you are planning your life around it and trying to get pregnant. So that's one of the crushing pieces of information, and why Laura and I were like, we got to get people these tools. It's accessible, it's easy, and we can skip these steps, these devastating moments, if people have it in their hands now.
That's a great point. What about you, Laura? What do you see often?
For me, I'm working a lot with people who are um, really trying to understand how to create the best, most sustainable mental health support for their lifestyles. And a lot of the time, people are looking for interventions that are perhaps involve pharmaceutical medication, like a sort of like psychiatric medication pathway, but they're often looking for other tools as well. And so, a massive thing that we get to do is understand if there is a hormonal pattern to what people are experiencing. And I myself am a millennial dealing with some perimenopausal symptoms, and I see many clients now who are in that age range who are entering into perimenopause. And we are noticing shifts in their mental health with anxiety, with feelings of even kind of like some panic symptoms, feelings of maybe a lower mood. When it comes to their sexuality, we're noticing some shifts in libido. And so it's really massive to be able to say, hey, through tracking, I think there's a hormonal component here, or there's really not. It's a clarifying experience for people that allows them to be properly informed advocates for their own health choices and the decisions that they're making around treatment options that they're pursuing that run the gamut, right? Like whatever it is that works for you, I am a proud supporter of that, but it's finding the right fit for that person. So for me, it's this huge like light bulb moment for people when they say, "Oh my gosh, like I thought that this was me going through a crisis when actually I think I'm entering into perimenopause and these are hormonal shifts which are directly connected to the anxiety that I'm experiencing, the physical panic symptoms that I am experiencing. It's saving people a lot of time, honestly, in doctor's offices, trying to get a number of things rolled out to be able to walk in with accurate data about what's been going on to kind of fast track people into the right pathway of treatment. And it's, I mean, this is changing the game for people's mental health treatment plans 100%. And when we're talking about the holistic sort of idea here of what our mental health is relationally as well, all these ways that we relate to the people in our lives, our kids, our partners, our friends, our colleagues, all of this is all wrapped up, and having clarity about what it is that's going on. Again, it 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 really takes the weight off of it.
I could not agree more. I also think that I see oftentimes people say, oh, it's just my hormones, or like, I'm a crazy person because of my hormones. Yes. And you're going through a really stressful time. Right. And so I feel like they put this again, I shame or blame, like maybe the partner put, like, she's just crazy because she's hormonal type of thing. And when you take a step back and think, okay, well, anybody in this situation, we'd be feeling a little bit out of control right now, right? And so taking that 30,000-foot view of yourself and your life to say, okay, maybe this is temporary because whatever it is that I'm going through. And on paper, my blood work actually does show that I'm quote unquote hormonal, and that's what's causing these things to happen. I think helps people to not label and or take mental health so lightly and make a joke of it, because those patterns, so to speak, can turn into long-term issues, right? They can build upon themselves. And if somebody claims you as, oh, she's just hormonal every time of the month, well, it's not really normal to be having those fluctuations of moods every time of the month. That's your body signaling something's up, right? Like something needs to be balanced. You shouldn't be having huge swings of moods. But that will indicate for your practitioner to say, okay, let's dig into this a little bit. And or did you just move across the country? Did you just lose your job? Are like life things that are big that will have some effect. And I think people are so easy to pass judgment on the hormones without recognizing that it actually is a thing, and it actually affects so much of our body and our, you know, I can't even start. It'll be a whole nother podcast on getting into all of that. But I just want to give it its credit to say the mental health aspect is huge.
Yes, yes. I appreciate everything that you're saying, and I think we can all relate to that stigma around, oh, they're just hormonal. There are hormone receptors in every major body system. And when we're talking about mental health, it is still a surprise to a lot of my clients when I introduce some of the research around premenstrual exacerbation of an underlying kind of chronic condition like anxiety or depression or OCD or a number of the trauma disorders like PTSD, borderline personality disorder, kind of the list goes on here, where we're really able to see for a lot of people, there is an exacerbation, typically in the luteal phase, that kind of like premenstrual phase, where when you're managing something chronic, you're seeing the symptoms much more acute during that particular time period. And there's just so much that we can do with that information. And it's real. It's very real. It makes sense. It's real. It's not, you know, in our heads, it's real.
When I first started digging into cycle syncing and all of this, it was like a huge light bulb moment for me. And I'm like, why isn't every business doing this? Every women's sport doing this? Like, I was on my soapbox 1,000% because I was like, our world needs to shift to women's cycles because it's just such a disservice to everybody involved, right? I'm not the best version of me in lots of ways at different times in my cycle, but I am in other times of my cycle. And I really think that once you get to know your body in that way, again, not only if you're trying to get pregnant, but just being out in the world, you're so much better and more confident, I think, to know like, oh, okay, I'm experiencing this because I'm in this part of my cycle right now, right? I think it's like the guidebook to your own body.
I love that. I mean, even how you were describing the idea of being hormonal and what that means. And in the end, it's hormones are chemical messengers. And so if you are feeling hormonal or getting dubbed hormonal by someone else, maybe it is a clue that your body is trying to communicate with you that there is a need that is not being met. And that can show up in so many different ways. Yes, through mental health, how you're feeling physically. Sometimes it shows up for people like digestively or, through what it feels like to work out, all of these things you were just describing. And I think if we start to rebrand that concept of being hormonal, like, oh God, if you are a person who has a menstrual cycle, what a beautiful, gorgeous insight that you're privy to on your overall health and ways to set up the best support for yourself that other people may not have access to. But you get that direct communication with those hormones, and that is such an amazing gift.
100%. And I think once you dial into that too, you become even more tuned in to yourself, right? If I know something was off with my period, I was like, I got to get in, I got to do an ultrasound, I got to figure out what's going on. Like something is off, like this isn't normal. And not only did that serve me in my first pregnancy of being told I had fibroids that were not an issue, that it turned out to be in the lining. So they were an issue, but I got blown off of basically like, it's not a problem. Like they're small fibroids, go ahead, go back home. Like no, nothing to worry about. And I knew because I was so in tune with my body that it was something that I really did need to get checked out. And again, within the last year, I think I dragged my husband again to do an ultrasound because I'm like, something's not right. Yes, I'm going through changes, but this is different. Something's off. And sure enough, it was. But I think had I not been so clued into every step of my cycle, I wouldn't really know the difference of those little nuances that were giving me big messages. They don't have to be a big raging this or that. And they're sometimes more subtle than we expect.
Absolutely. That's really inspiring.
I think the education about cycle, what are we calling it? Tracking. Sorry. I was going to say cycle syncing again, but cycle tracking to understand what that is. And also then not to have a judgment around that, because I think too, people will say, well, I don't have enough cervical mucus. Well, how do we know what that is, first of all, right? And there's ways to work around that. And or again, I'm bleeding too much, I'm bleeding too little, or they think it's normal when really it's not, and those sorts of things. So how do you guys help people navigate once they are in the tracking phase to start to understand what is normal for them and what is something that is a subtle change that needs to be addressed?
There's so much about cycle tracking that Laura and I love because it can be so individualized, which is really a different way of looking at this, where it's just like you're saying, of figuring out what's normal, not just for everybody, but for you. It's the same way people talk about, like, hey, I went and I got basic blood work done at the doctor's and they said it was all normal and I should be relieved. But sometimes people are not relieved because they're like, I don't feel good. That doesn't make sense because I don't feel good. And that's where cycle tracking with this method can be so helpful, because we can identify, yes, the big bad scaries, just like you're saying, of when should you follow up with a provider and maybe do some further investigation. We can help with that. But it's also identifying what's normal for you, what feels good for you, what doesn't work for you, and not kind of falling into these little boxes of what it's supposed to be, and instead finding out what it is for you. Like, what does it mean for that? Cervical fluid doesn't look the same for everybody. I can tell you that. Like, some people experience it one way, some people do the other. It has nothing to do with how fertile they are. It's just a different way that the body shows up and communicates. So really being able to pull it away from these basic definitions of normal and good and start to really dig deeper and ask more questions around the sensations people are experiencing makes all the world of difference. So that's part of the interactive guide that we've offered, is really guiding people through, how do I even understand what I want to track? It's not as simple as this idea of, I'm going to track bleeding or I'm going to track cervical fluid. There's so much more a person can dig into, from the macro to the micro. And we really want to give people tools to figure out what feels most important to investigate, and do a little bit of hand holding on, okay, now that we know that, here's a really cool strategy for pulling that information out that you're after.
There's a kind of openness to the chart that we designed in the book, that after a few guided exercises, the reader is able to fill in with the categories that they would like to track. So this doesn't have to have anything to do with fertility if you don't want it to. What we really are trying to do is exactly what you're saying, like incorporate the entire experience of sensation, and to choose the sensations that feel important to you, to begin the process of attunement to your body. And something that we talk about in our practices and in our book is that just a few cycles of practicing this kind of mindful observation of the signals that are important to you is going to build this language, and you will have a fluency in the language. And exactly like you're describing, once you have that fluency, you will start to notice when things don't feel right and when things do. And that is just going to come like second nature to you after like such a short period of time of practicing. We normally say, like, let's try 3 cycles and kind of go from there. But we see the benefits so quickly for people as they're becoming practiced in that really simple, like being clued into what your body is telling you, feeling.
That was going to be my question. How long, how many cycles do you think you generally see for people to start to notice a trend, or that they can get an idea of what's really going on with their body?
Yeah, it really is like starting the different method of tracking. People usually, at least my clients, I can attest to, will reach out halfway through a cycle and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it any different than this. This is crazy. I already feel good and I don't even know what's happening. Like, that will happen right away. But then it is really, the cool part is, once we have a couple cycles that we can put side by side, oh man, the information you can pull from that is so huge, where you really can say, this thing is hormonal, or this thing is not, or I need to dig into this deeper, or this is not. So once we can get a couple cycles side by side, 2 or 3, then the whole world is your oyster. But I think the amazing part that makes this so easy and accessible is that you get this awesome feedback pretty instantaneously once you get started.
That's, to me, it's so fun, right? Because this is what I love
Yeah.
and this is what I do. But I
Yeah.
think when you can have data and see information about your body, that's just so empowering, I feel like, right? Because you have I don't want to say control over it, but to some degree you do, right? Because then I need to pull this lever back. I need more of this. I need less of that. I need more sleep. I need, we're not working out right now because I'm bleeding this week or whatever it is, right? You just know how to be in relationship with your physical body in a way that nobody has ever really taught you before. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Even I haven't been trying to have children for 5 years and I'm still doing it because it tells me so much about myself and my body. And I like the weeks that I'm not, I'm like, wait, where am I at in my cycle again? Because I'm really tired today or whatever it is. And it always just kind of points back to, okay, yeah, that makes sense because this is what's happening. Or I'm on fire this week. Like I have so many ideas and it always tracks. And I think that's the beautiful thing is we're just not used to trusting our body and knowing what to look for to say, okay, that's super cool.
And that's the part that I think Laura and I are just on our soapbox about, of like, especially when it comes to fertility, when people are just ready to be mean to themselves and say, this is my fault. Like, I can't believe I didn't know this. I can't believe this is happening. It's all because I didn't do these things. This is a disservice by society and our culture. This is your body and your information that you should have been given at a very young age. And that's a messed up problem, and it's not okay. And we are sorry for that. But we want to give you something so that you can do something about it today. You can catch up and learn this language. You can access it easily and readily and become fluent in it quick. Don't be, dissuaded or feel like I can't keep up with my Duolingo. How am I supposed to do this? It's different. Like, we can have this information and make it ours.
Right. And I think what's fun about it is you're tracking along your day-to-day life. So you see the results and you can recognize that. And it's different than Duolingo even because you might be learning a language that you can't practice, but you're having this relationship with yourself and you're like, oh, okay, this happened today, or I was feeling really down today, or I was, I don't know. I just think it's so much opportunity in doing this. So how can people find you guys, work with you guys, buy your book? Tell us all of those fun things.
You can find us on our website, thecyclebook.com. You'll find information about both Laura and mine's private practices and how to get a hold of us for that. But follow us on social media too, also at The Cycle Book. We're there for all the things. We love talking to everybody about all things cycle related. So hit us up.
And again, I can't recommend enough to cycle, whether you are, not even thinking about having kids, have had kids, etc. Like it's really good for you to understand the health of your body. And the cycle teaches us so much about our body, mind and body, I should say, as well. So thank you guys so much for being here today. And until we meet again. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.